I've played tons of Genesis games, and because I've played so many, I'm very familiar with what the system is capable of doing. Crunchy Genesis sounds, a very unique color palette that fought hard and strong against the Super Nintendo and other consoles of the era. Believe it or not, this is one of the 10 game series that I look forward to, talking about the best looking games on a particular console. And that's the topic of today's episode, the top 10 best looking Genesis games, at least in my opinion. Now bear in mind, if I don't mention your game, don't take it personally. After all, I'm just a boy. Let's begin. Ranger X is the Genesis equivalent of a kid showing up to school one day with a sudden, unexplained superpower. You look at the hardware on paper, a 1988 16-bit machine, and there is absolutely no universe where it should look this smooth, this animated, or this futuristic, and yet here it is, flexing like it's auditioning for the Saturn launch lineup. The mecha animations are so clean you'd swear they were pre-rendered. The bike combine mechanic looks like something out of a 90s anime OVA. The parallax scrolling is so layered that it sometimes feels like you're flying through a hologram instead of a 2D landscape. And the lighting is absurd, with these hot yellows and deep blues igniting the screen like a dynamic LED glow long before anything like that existed. Ranger X doesn't look like a Genesis game. It looks like a machine trying to convince you it's secretly a completely different console, and almost succeeding. It's stylish, sharp, impossibly fluid, and one of the most visually how in the fuck did they do that games on the system. Thunder Force 4 is Technosoft standing on the top of a Sega Genesis with a megaphone yelling, "Does this entertain you? Give us more!" It's a spectacle, a straight-up visual barrage. The first time you see those oceans swell beneath you in the opening stage, with waves rolling and lightning reflecting across the surface like a living painting, it hits you. This is not normal Genesis stuff. The sheer amount of parallax scrolling on display is obscene. Layers upon layers, moving independently, creating full depth of field effects long before the term meant anything in gaming. Enemy ships appear in swarms, the backgrounds stretch on forever, and all of it remains absurdly fast and absurdly smooth. Explosions spray clusters of neon debris, giant bosses drift into frame like battleships breaking through fog, and not once, and I do mean not once, does the frame rate blink. Thunder Force 4 is the Genesis showing off in front of its 16-bit peers, fully aware that nothing else is operating on this level. You know, Mickey Mania deserves applause for being one of the most beautifully animated character-driven games on the system. The Steamboat Willie stage alone, the black and white film grain, the scratchy vintage shading, the way Mickey bounces like classic rubber hose animation, it's practically a reanimated cartoon. And I give props to Traveler's Tales, because they grew as a company. They're the same goons who made Bram Stoker's Dracula on the Genesis and on the SNES, and Pugsy on the Sega CD, Genesis, and Amiga. And while I appreciate Pugsy, I fucking hate Dracula. Now today they mostly focus on LEGO games, and there's nothing wrong with that because those games are fun, and so is Mickey Mania. Sonic 2's beauty is deceptive because the game is so fast you don't always notice how good it looks. But slow down, actually look, and suddenly the artistry hits you. Chemical Plant Zone is a neon dream with those deep purples and electric blues making the entire stage glow like a cyberpunk factory. Casino Night is a sensory overload of flashing lights, animated panels, and shimmering reflective floors. Oil Ocean's Heat Haze still feels advanced, like a Genesis game using atmospheric distortion long before anyone thought that it was possible. Even something as simple as Emerald Hill has this tropical vibrancy, with coral green grass and smoothly animated palm trees swaying in the background. Everything is framed so you can read it instantly at high speeds, and it's bold, it's colorful, it's very smartly designed. Sonic 2 is visual clarity at 100 miles per hour, perfect marriage of style and speed. Treasure does not make games. They make controlled chaos, and Dynamite Headdy is their most colorful explosion. This game looks like a puppet theater that fell into a nuclear generator. Every stage is a new visual identity. One minute you're fighting a giant robot doll head, the next you're navigating a stage made entirely of curtains, platforms, props, and theatrical illusions. The amount of animation is staggering, characters squash and stretch like Disney cartoons, bosses morph mid-battle, backgrounds pulse and twist as if the game world itself is reacting to your presence. Sometimes the screen looks like it's trying to process 10 ideas at once, and somehow it still reads perfectly. Headdy is loud, imaginative, and bursting with personality, like a 2D stage play where every artist on the team tried to outdo all the others. Hey, another Treasure game, hell yeah. So Alien Soldier looks like Treasure got tired of playing fair and decided, fuck it! Let's melt the console. The game doesn't run. It tears across the screen like it's trying to escape the cartridge. Every sprite is a snarl of detail. Feathers, armor plates, exposed engines, organic metal, all packed into frames that animate faster than your brain can comprehend. Bosses don't just attack, they mutate in front of you, growing new limbs, morphing into machines, transforming mid-battle like they're powered by piss and vinegar alone. There's particle effects, laser grids, flaming arcs, and shockwaves that ripple like the hardware is screaming, and somehow through all of that chaos, nothing becomes unreadable. That's the thing that I can say about Treasure. Total visual overload without ever losing clarity. Alien Soldier isn't just one of the best looking Genesis games, it's the Genesis breaking the speed limit, the aesthetic limit, and every unspoken rule about what a 16-bit system is supposed to do. Beyond Oasis looks like a high-end arcade title smuggled into a Genesis shell. The animation in Ali's movements is almost shockingly smooth. His attack arcs, dodges, and magic effects have a fluidity very rare for the era. And there's also a softness to the character sprites that almost feels hand-drawn. The environments glow with color, lush forests, ancient ruins, shimmering blue waters, and golden fields all rendered with a painter's touch. The spirit summons, especially the shimmering water effects from Dido, look like they belong in a system far more powerful. Beyond Oasis feels rich, warm, cinematic. The visuals don't just display a world, they kind of invite you into it. Now this is a recent one for me, and I genuinely wrestled with where to place it. Castlevania Bloodlines isn't just a good-looking Genesis game, it's one of the most stylish action titles of the 16-bit era, period. But it's also one of those games where the more you stare at it, the more you realize, it's kind of cheating. Not in a bad way, in that classic Konami dominatrix wizardry way where they bend hardware until it screams and submits and they pretend everything's perfectly normal. Bloodlines pushes gothic horror through Yamaha FM synth and Sega color palettes like it's trying to prove something. Every stage looks hand-painted with a brush dipped in midnight, shattered European cathedrals, moonlit courtyards, blood-red fountains spilling onto marble floors. Enemies don't die, they burst, they crumble, they erupt in showers of bones and gore like they're trying to make the most dramatic exit possible. And then there's the weird stuff, the warped tower, the collapsing platforms, the room that looks like Mode 7 escaped from the Super Nintendo and snuck into the Genesis through the back door. Konami wasn't just flexing, they were showing off, twisting sprites, scaling backgrounds, and animating things that should not have been possible without sacrificing a small goat to the hardware gods. Ristar isn't just a good-looking Genesis game, it's Sega flexing pure artistic muscle. Where most Genesis titles lean sharp and gritty, Ristar goes into the complete opposite direction. This game is soft, rounded, and lush. The planets you visit feel alive in a way that's almost unfair to everything else in the hardware. Star-shaped flowers wiggle in the breeze, alien critters bounce with cartoon timing, and even background foliage has this very subtle rhythmic animation that makes the world feel like it's breathing. Nothing is stiff and nothing is static, everything moves. Ristar himself is a masterclass in expressive animation. Stretching, reaching, squishing, snapping back with that springy elasticity that gives him more personality than some entire mascots, and the transitions that are smooth in a way that looks closer to 16-bit Disney than a typical Genesis tiling. Every level shift blends naturally, like pages turning in a picture book. This game is Genesis hardware turning into a pyrotechnics show. It is, without exaggeration, one of the most graphically abusive games ever made for the system. Entire screens flash from lightning strikes, mechanical bosses explode in sprays of sparks, snowstorms blow across the screen, and industrial machinery animates with absurd detail. It's the animated series smashed together with a rave. Every level is visually distinct, ridiculously animated, and saturated with visual effects that should be impossible on 16-bit hardware. The game is intense, loud, fucking hard, but most importantly, it's visually spectacular. A tech showcase that still drops jaws today. And while it's not traditionally beautiful, Virtua Racing deserves a shout out for achieving full 3D polygon visuals on a cartridge. The SVP chip, witchcraft. Witchcraft. Enough said. Aladdin is animation royalty. Not good for 16-bit, not impressive for the hardware, no. This is the Genesis stepping aside, cracking its knuckles and saying, watch what happens when actual Disney animators get involved. Every single frame in Aladdin looks like it was lifted straight out of a feature film because it basically was. Virgin Games worked directly with Disney's animation team, so these sprites weren't just drawn, they were acted. They have timing, they have weight, they have personality dripping out of every motion. Aladdin's run cycle is smoother than half the cartoons on TV in 1993. His sword slashes feel like they're part of a choreographed fight scene, and his smirk, that iconic little Aladdin smirk, lands with more charm than most modern protagonists. The environments are epic too. Agrabah glows like a painting in motion. Even the idle animations go hard as fuck. You put the controller down for a second, it's like the animators are tapping you on the shoulder. Hey, we showed up to work. Play our game. Fuck you. Aladdin isn't just one of the best looking Genesis games, it's one of the best looking 2D games ever made. A masterclass in expressive animation, timeless art direction, and how far a console can go when the artists aren't fighting limitations, they're kind of dancing around them. Comix Zone isn't just stylish, it's a full-blown art flex from Sega Technical Institute. The moment the game starts, you're hit with a stark, slab ink comic aesthetic that feels ripped straight out of a 90s graphic novel. But then it goes further. Every transition is physical. Panels shake, bend, crumble, and tear as you move between them. Sketch Turner isn't just in a comic, he interacts with a page like he's in a living environment. Enemies burst out of penciled sketches, hand-drawn backgrounds animate like someone is flipping through pages in real time, and even the shading is deliberate. Cross-hatching, stippling, sharp blacks, all techniques used on real comics. What makes it legendary is the commitment. It never once breaks that illusion. Even the UI, health bars, scene transitions, and boss intros look like badass indie comics that somehow became sentient. It's moody, punchy, hyper-detailed, and unmistakably Genesis, yet nothing else on the system looks remotely like it. Comix Zone isn't just the best looking Genesis game to me, it's the console's artistic mic drop. And that's it for today's episode. What did you think about this list? In your opinion, what are the greatest looking Genesis games out there? Feel free to let the community know down in the comments section below. Speaking of our community, if you made it to the end of this episode, you're already home with us. We're gathering of video game enthusiasts that love to remember when life was just a little bit easier to live. And if you align with that, feel free to subscribe. Finally, the single most important thing you can do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly affects the visibility of the videos and the projects that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes. Fortefyre out.